Yeah.
When I say something stupid, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it. I'm just saying it.
So earlier this week, I covered Joe Rogan's misinformation about the coronavirus vaccine, where he advised healthy 21-year-olds to not get it, as if the vaccine is somehow more dangerous to healthy 21-year-olds than actual COVID-19. Well, thankfully, he's walked back his statements, yet still does not appear to understand the impact and influence that he has. So I have a couple of clips here. Let me start with this first one.
I didn't say I'm not an anti-vax person.
Right.
In fact, I said I believe they're safe, and I encourage many people to take them. My parents were vaccinated. I just said I don't think that if you're a young, healthy person that you need it. Their argument was you need it for other people.
So you don't transmit the virus.
That makes more sense.
So
But that's a different argument. That's
I'm
a
a
different
young,
conversation.
not so healthy person.
Now, okay, so I have another clip coming up. But yes, I'm glad Joe Rogan cleared this up, at least slightly. But the goal of vaccinating is to get to herd immunity. This is not a different conversation or a different thing. This is the same conversation. We're still talking about vaccines. The entire goal of vaccines, that the only way to eliminate COVID-19 is to get to herd immunity, making sure that there is nowhere for COVID-19 to spread and mutate. So that's the big worry right now, is there are all these variants, and the longer we leave COVID-19 to mutate, the greater chance there is that there will be a mutation of COVID-19 that will essentially be more powerful than the vaccines that are currently rolling out, which is why, I mean, this is a different discussion, but this is why there's a big discussion around waiving the IP rights on these vaccines so that they can be mass produced in larger quantities and be given worldwide, as opposed to, I mean, some countries apparently have to wait till 2024 to get vaccinated. If it's these same vaccines and you're allowing COVID to mutate in that time, the vaccines being produced now simply are not going to be effective. So there is a real need to vaccinate everybody immediately, and people like Joe Rogan appear to not understand how powerful they are. So one more clip here.
These are not like planned statements. Let's be real clear.
Yeah.
When I say something stupid, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it. I'm just saying it, right? I don't have an off-air and on-air voice. I don't.
No.
I have me.
This is us.
it. I'm not a respected source of information, even for me. If I say things, I'm always going, check on that, Jamie. I don't know if that's true.
Right.
I do that all the time.
Right.
But I at least try to be honest about what I'm saying.
Or what you feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Rogan says here that these are not, quote, these are not planned statements. Obviously, look, I think Rogan, maybe I'm in the minority here. I think Rogan has a good heart. I think he means well. Obviously his statements aren't planned. His podcast is very off the cuff, but that doesn't matter here. We're not judging your character. I'm not judging Rogan's character. I'm concerned about the impact of his message. So when you have a platform as large as Rogan's is, the guy was paid an estimated $100 million to be on Spotify exclusively. He has a massive audience of millions, the largest podcast on Spotify, arguably, possibly the largest podcast in the entire country or North America in general. And he's putting vaccine misinformation out there. Look, if I make a little mistake on my show, I feel horrible and I correct myself. I'll put a tweet out. I'll do something where I ensure that people are aware that I made this mistake. It's usually small because I research a lot of what I do ahead of time. But say I say something that's wrong, I'll make sure to correct that. But someone like Joe Rogan, who has a much larger audience than I do, much larger, speaks to a lot of impressionable young men who look up to him, who listen to his every word. And by the way, Rogan speaks a lot about health and wellness, so advice about the vaccine isn't completely out of his wheelhouse. The kind of trust that he's built with his audience, for him not to be more conscious of what he is saying and the impact that has, I just don't understand what world he's living in. Does he truly not understand his impact? This is why it mattered what he said. This is why it turned into a big story. Like, it's there's nothing wrong because in that initial clip, he discussed how his 2 kids had COVID-19 and they had like a little fever, but it wasn't a big deal. That's fine. You can, of course, share your personal experiences, but that doesn't mean you then apply that to everybody. No, you look at the actual data and you can say, from personal experience, my kids, it didn't impact them that much, but there are thousands that have ended up in the hospital, thousands that have died, kids that have died from COVID-19. Maybe I should, even though this is my experience, you should not apply my experience to everybody, and you should be careful and aware and listen to healthcare professionals on what to do about the vaccine. So he said some of that here, but Rogan really he doesn't learn. He'll have people in front of him, and often he takes on whatever worldview that person has for that couple of hours. And then he has someone else on and then takes on their worldview for a couple of hours. He doesn't really seem to absorb anything. And I think that's the biggest issue that I have with Rogan, because I was a big avid viewer of his for several years. But it got to the point where you would notice he would have on, dumber and dumber and dumber people, platforming people who really aren't well known, but platforming them to a larger audience, and then taking on whatever that person said in that hour, and then not doing it the next hour, but then having there was never any consistency in what he stood for, except for health and wellness in general, and UFC, things that he actually knows about. But when it comes to other topics, he's just, he moves in the wind, and he has to be aware of his influence here. Now, also, just to be clear, he said he was scheduled in this podcast. He said he was scheduled to get the J&J vaccine before it was then pulled. So he himself plans to get the vaccine. I don't know why. You have somebody who is pro-vaccine, understands the need to get vaccinated, but then tells young people who are healthy to not get vaccinated, as if the vaccine is somehow worse for you than COVID-19. It just doesn't make any sense, and Rogan needs to be a little more aware of the kind of platform and influence that he has.